Okay, so welcome. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm here with Michelle Kidwell, who is with the Callaway County Office of Emergency Management, and she's actually going to talk today about business continuity and preparedness. In case you didn't know, September, although we're winding out of September, is National Preparedness Month. Of course, we saw some things this year that we weren't really expecting and couldn't prepare for, but hopefully we can set a plan in place for other disasters and how to safeguard your business and your enterprise. So Michelle, without further ado, I will let you take it away.
Okay, well, thanks. I'm happy to be here. If anyone has any questions, hopefully I can breeze through this fairly quickly and still leave enough time for questions at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started. So business continuity and preparedness is important. And I'm glad that all of you could be a part of this because, as you've seen this year, you need to plan for the unexpected. So a little bit, because I get these two questions a lot, and the first one is, what's emergency management? So back in the day, it was civil defense, for those that might be familiar with that term, and then it transferred over to emergency management. And hang on just a second, because I have something on my screen that's blocking. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. But anyway, it was established, and we actually operate based off of things that are in the Stafford Act and the revised statutes that Missouri established, which authorized the establishment of emergency management for local subdivisions in order to keep the citizens safe and do preparedness actions and try and mitigate against potential hazards, whether it be man-made or natural disasters. So with that kind of being said, what do I do? And I like to tell people lots of times that if you roll something down a hill, I'm generally at the bottom and I catch it. That's kind of what I feel like I do sometimes. I do a little bit of everything. So the main things I do, obviously, is to plan and prepare for various hazards that could affect our county. I do mitigation, which minimizes the effects caused by disaster, or it could be after disaster where you mitigate something to where if that same thing happens again, you're not going to get the same devastation. Obviously, I do response. When something happens, I'm generally at the EOC, or I might be mobile and working in the background. But really, I support the emergency responders. I make sure that they have the tools that they need to help those that are in the county when there's a situation going on, a serious emergency or a disaster. And then public information, I provide that mostly for warning and direction if there's, a disaster or something imminent happening. And then I expedite restoration and long-term recovery. I usually put committees together or work with committees on long-term recovery after disasters happened to try and get things restored to a new normal as quickly as possible. And then, of course, test the plans that I make, which are the emergency plans, continuity plans, mitigation plans. But a big part of my job is networking and coordination, because it's really those in the community that let me do my job, because there's a lot of resources in our community. And so having that general awareness of what resources there are helps me to tap into those resources if there's ever a need moving forward. So I try to make a lot of introductions and face-to-face meetings to do that when time allows and I can. So why have a business continuity plan? Well, basically, a continuity plan is really a plan to stay in business, and a lot of you, I think, saw that this year. But you want this plan to reduce consequences and keep it at a manageable level for yourselves. It facilitates performance of your essential functions, and that's what you want to think about when you're thinking about business continuity. So anything that's going to disrupt normal operations what can you do to continue to operate when those things are happening, because that's what keeps your business going. And then it's also having a plan for once a disaster's over, how can you get back to those normal operations quickly, seamlessly, effortlessly. So the first step is, how do you plan? And the first thing that you want to do is a risk assessment. And a risk assessment basically identifies hazards that can occur in your community, but they need to also be specific to your business. If you have a business in Mocaine, then one of your hazards is probably going to be flooding. If you have, a business in Fulton, then, there's natural gas lines that go, throughout the city there. So you need to plan specific hazards for your business, and what might affect one business a certain way may not impact another, obviously. So you want to identify the potential hazards and also the hazards that are in your county, such as, tornado, earthquake, pandemics, floods, fires, civil disturbances. Now cybersecurity is coming on the scene, and that's really affecting businesses. And, of course, we have the nuclear power plant, so we have to think about radiological. So you want to determine what keeps your business running and take steps to ensure you can continue in an emergency or disaster. So what functions are essential to operation of your business? What functions, can be suspended or can be suspended for about 30 days, and which ones do you need to have restored within 12 hours? For example, some things that can interrupt your essential business, and we'll use a power outage for an example because that can affect anybody. So if you had a power outage that was more than 48 hours, what would that effect be on your business? And those are the questions you're going to ask yourself. What critical systems do you have that rely on electricity? If you're a grocery store, then you've got the coolers. You've got your computers, so you've got servers. If it's in the middle of summer, cooling might be a big situation that would affect your business, or the products that are in your business might be affected. And then you want to minimize that risk. So you want to look at things that you can do, obviously, that's going to minimize that. And not everyone can do all these things because there's cost factors. And so you try to do the best that you can and work around those. But you can purchase a generator. You can contract with a fuel supplier to make sure that your generator has fuel. You might contact your suppliers and ask them, what is your plan if something happens? Are you still going to be able to deliver? Do you have alternate suppliers? Things of that nature. So you want to protect your building from hazards also and take steps to reduce the impact, and I kind of alluded to that a little bit, and that's what mitigation does. So you want to make sure, and these are things that a lot of you do already, but, have working fire extinguishers. Sometimes when I'm working with organizations, they'll have fire extinguishers, but they haven't had them filled or checked, and there's expirations on those. Because we're in an earthquake zone, you might want to have shelves and things like that fastened down. If you're in a flood area, you might want flood drains. Have tornado safety planning for your employees or customers that might be in the store. Where are they going to go, and what actions do you want those employees to take if the tornado siren sounds or if an alert comes over? And then you ask yourself, if your facility is damaged, how are you going to continue to operate? Your business may become inaccessible for a number of reasons from a disaster. And so if you can't get to your building, can you stay in business? A lot of you saw that with the pandemic as well, and you had to strategize ways to operate when you couldn't necessarily be open physically or have people inside your stores. Maybe you make a plan to relocate your critical operations to another site if that's possible, if the facility is damaged. And can your employees work from home? Some can, some can't. I know that depends on the type of business. Can you get your email and things like that from an outside site in case you have to operate out of home? Having insurance that will enable you to get back into business after disaster is important. This is especially important where the owner's financial health is often closely tied to the health of your business, which small businesses, I mean, a lot of you have everything sunk into your business. You just want to talk to your insurance carriers and see what insurance plans are available. There's insurance for reestablishing your business after a disaster. Of course, your property policies, flood insurance, the business interruption insurance, but you also want to look at what your policies might exclude so you're not taken off guard. Valuable papers and records, of course, money, property off the insured premises, and then certain types of outdoor property. You want to identify what records and systems and equipment are vital to the operation of your business. And this is all part of your risk assessment. You're looking at what risk can affect you and what are your essential functions that might be affected by those hazards. And that's kind of what I'm talking about in a roundabout way, I guess. Do you back up your vital records and equipment off-site in case something happens to your site? Do you have a list of suppliers? Do you document the makes and models of your critical equipment that you're using? Are your vital records routinely backed up? Do you have paper copies? You might make a go kit just for your business for vital resources where you have those contacts that you keep off-site in case you need to tap into it. And then there's a small list of what you can include, you know, in such a go kit. You know, your staff contact list, you know, reference cards with how to shut down systems before evacuation, things like that. And with that said, you definitely want to identify the key personnel in your business that do perform these essential functions. It's always good to have redundancy, so you want to try and make sure if your business is large enough that you have at least another person who can step in and do that person's job just in case they're unable to. Sometimes a disaster can affect people personally and they might not be able to come in for that reason, so you want to make sure that you have enough people or staff available that are knowledgeable in what you want done if something happens. So you want to create that succession plan and include in that who has the authority to perform certain essential functions and consider an alternate. You want to make sure that those people have those written plans too of how you know, are there certain things that you want taken if they have to evacuate? What are the procedures for evacuation? What are the procedures for sheltering in place if there's a chemical incident or a tornado, things like that. So even though you may know what you want to do with your business, it's important to let those key players within your business also know so that they can respond effectively and quickly. So part of that is having a communication plan. And you can develop strategies to communicate with your employers, your suppliers, and even your customers during an emergency. So as part of your risk assessment, you're going to think about what can cause communication failures, and is that something you're vulnerable to, which, you know, if the power goes out, you know, you may not have your computers, phones could go down. In a disaster, it's not uncommon for cell phone towers to become inundated. So you may be relying on a cell phone, and then when you go to use it, you may not be able to get out, depending on the size, of course, of the disaster. So you want to have redundant systems in place for how you're going to communicate with your personnel, your staff, in case that, you know, your routine way of communicating isn't there. So having a communication plan is important. Step 8, we're going to talk a little bit about communities. Individuals and businesses can all be affected, of course, by a disaster, whether it's immediate property damage, destruction of services, maybe your supply chain's disrupted, you're going to lose production time. And those are all immediate effects. And you also have your long-term effects that you also need to think about if there's a disaster situation. The demographic and economic changes in the community is one of them. You know, if a community is hit by a tornado, people are displaced, even like with the pandemic, where a lot of people maybe weren't working and incomes shift, the demand, the supply changes a little bit, and workers aren't able to return to work at all. So you need to consider the answers to these questions after disaster. And, you know, the product that you sell or the service that you provide, is that something that your clientele need right now? Can they afford it right now? Have your customers moved out? You know, is there an evacuation? Who's moved in? Are the needs the same because of what's happening? How have neighborhood changed? And how is sorry, my computer's glitching. How did customers suffer because of these losses? So you think about all these things and how you can fill that gap with your business. Okay, I think I got that fixed. So like I said, everyone has gone through the pandemic, and I know everybody's about over the pandemic. It's been really long, 6-7 months of this. But diversity is really something that you want to consider when you're doing business continuity planning. And I should say that when you're doing planning, it's easy to say, oh, I have plans for if there's a fire. I know what I'm going to do. I have insurance, so my building will be replaced. You know, I have the fire extinguishers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at all hazard planning and look at all the risks, a lot of those hazards that could affect your business kind of go across the board. For example, a tornado, an earthquake, a severe storm can knock out power. So your risk is, I have no power. So even though the disaster itself or the emergency might be different, the outcome's still the same. And that's kind of the way you want to look at it. But there are ways that you can diversify. And this was done, and a good example of that was this pandemic. There were a lot of manufacturing companies that produced one thing, but then they started producing masks, and they started producing face shields and different supplies that could be used. So they diversified their business so they could stay in business during that time. And even though they weren't selling their main product that they normally sold, they were still able to operate, keep employees, and turn a little bit of a profit. So you want to look at the product lines. You know, is there something you can add or something you can do different? And again, your customer base. Look at the emerging trends in the community. How can you market your product or services to a different customer base based on what they're needing at the time, if it's a community spread disaster type thing? And you know, the restaurants did that. They started delivery, they did food pickup. So a lot of you are really doing a lot of this stuff, but to actually put it down and learn from the experience is part of business continuity. Your supply lines, especially when you talk about infrastructure being damaged, like an earthquake or something like that, you might want to have alternate sources. I know that I've worked with a lot of different companies on oxygen delivery, which really isn't necessarily a business thing, but we have people in the community that are oxygen dependent, and you get a severe ice storm or something like that, they still have that need. They still need to get that product. So it's looking for alternate sources that can still provide that. And then locations. You might consider multiple locations based on the type of emergency. You know, is relocation a possibility? Or can you bring the services to the affected area? So diversification is really important in your business continuity plan. So emergency preparedness is really encompassing all of this. It's being prepared by having a plan on what actions you're going to take to stay in business. So you want to identify your resources, write your plan, develop a system to manage all those incidents that we've kind of talked about. You want to train your employees so that they can be ready for those emergencies and execute the plans that you have. Make sure you're not the only one that knows what you're going to do if something goes south or you have an emergency. Include little trainings, where you use fire extinguishers, have evacuation plans drawn up, severe weather warnings, how are you going to handle that with your employees and staff. So all those preparedness things are important because you really don't think about it unless something happens. I doubt anybody thought we would have a pandemic this year, and probably didn't give a thought about what if, people can't come into my business. So it's kind of thinking along those lines. And really also you want to encourage your personnel to be prepared in their personal lives, because what I see a lot happen when a disaster happens is a shortness of staff, because everyone's dealing with the emergency also on a personal level, and so that may limit their ability to come in. So if your employees have plans, for instance, I have daycares or places where I can establish daycares for emergency responders if we have a big catastrophic thing in Callaway County, because how many firefighters and ambulance people, are going to be able to really do a good job if they're worried about their family. So, having things in place for them will also help you and help build resiliency in your business. So you want to formalize all of this, all of your plans into your continuity plan. And really it's like a safety plan for specific facilities. You've got your evacuation, accountability systems, fire, and most of that you already are all doing. But contingency plans can also equip you to protect your business in the world that's changing now, such as what if you have to operate with less staff, which some of you probably are? What if your key supplier or major customer shut down? What if your building's inside a radiological 10-mile emergency planning zone, like a lot of it is here in Callaway County, and you're empty for days? So formalize these plans instead of waiting until something happens. Think about it when nothing is going on, or learning from past. We call those after action reports. What went right, what went wrong, and build that into your plan as well. So implementation of plans, business continuity is one plan, but it includes so many others. Your resource management, your emergency response plan for your staff and employees, clients, customers, how are you going to communicate? Now information technology is huge and almost every business uses it. So what's your plan if that fails? Do you have redundancy? How can you have a workaround for that? Employee assistance and support. A lot of businesses, most businesses, I would think, really care about their staff. So you want to kind of think about that and how are you going to operate if an incident happens. And then, of course, you want to train people so that they know how to act, how to react, or they're not reacting, but instead they're following the plan and in an efficient manner. Recovery, that's creating a plan that'll help you with your future business after a disaster happens. How are you going to operate in the future? Major disasters can really, and they do actually, change communities forever. We've been fortunate enough outside of this pandemic never to really have catastrophic disaster. We've had disasters, but nothing catastrophic to where it's, really changed things. But I feel like the pandemic's changing the way that businesses will operate moving forward. You're going to have to probably market more websites, delivery methods, how you're going to do business is probably something that's really going to change. But you want to lay the groundwork ahead of time so that it just makes it easier for you to make those decisions, and you're not doing something on a whim. You're able to put some thought into it. So disasters and emergencies are low frequency. They don't happen very often, but when they do happen, they're really bad. Because they don't happen every day, a lot of people don't really think about it. I think from my experience, the best time for people to actually make plans and prepare for things is right after a disaster. You know, if you suffer through something, it's really prominent in your mind and you're going to want to do something about it right then and there. But it's when you have those quiet times that you want to really sit and think about your plans. And as we all know, failure to plan can result in financial loss, especially for small businesses. Nationally, there's probably 40% of businesses don't make it back after a disaster. They actually go out of business. So it's really important to do the planning before something happens. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. You could do this over a year's period, just doing one little step each month. And I think I left some material with the chamber that has some templates and outlines where you can just take those little steps and do just a little here and a little there. But it will save you money, and it could save you lives by having your plans in place. They can equip you to protect your business in a changing world. So you're following a planning process. You're going to determine your risk first, what hazards can affect your business. And you're going to define what are your essential functions for your business, because that's what you have to have done in order for you to operate and stay in business. From that, you're going to design your plan. Once you get it planned, you're going to test it, maybe train, and then exercise on the plan. Even if it's sitting down and at your company meetings and talking through something with your employees, that counts because you're bringing it up. Kind of the old adage where if you do something once or twice, it's fresher in your mind than if you never do it at all. And then you want to distribute and update the plan. So you want to make sure that, like I said, those key employees know what the plan is. And then when something happens, that's when you update your plan. Technically, you should update it annually or every 2 years, but when something happens, that's when you look at your plan and ask yourself that question, what worked and what didn't work. So I know the Chamber is going to make the presentation available, and they have my contact information. I believe they're going to share that. But here's a few more resources that you can go to for business continuity to help you develop your plan. And then I know for small businesses, I kind of want to touch on a little bit, but there's a lot of free templates and things like that for no-cost solutions. So there are things that you can do that don't cost money, like just creating your employee emergency contact information list. You know, that just takes time. Talking to your staff about the disaster plan, that just takes time. Creating a list of your critical business connections, your suppliers, contractors, others that you think you might use in an emergency, that just takes time. And then diversifying, you know, think about what product or what service you do. What can you sidestep into with little cost, maybe just a change in operations that will help you stay in business. You know, those are things that are no cost building your business continuity plan. And then for, you know, less than $500, you can keep antivirus software, you know, for your cyber attacks, which are happening more frequently now. Attaching equipment cabinets to walls, stabilize those things. Elevating things if you're in a flood zone, obviously, in your business. And then backing up your records and stuff like that. So a lot of that for business continuity planning, you really don't have to have money for. It's just putting it down on paper and thinking these processes through of what you can do, how you can operate, what you need to operate, what's your bottom line to keep operating. And that will keep your business resilient. I think that is all that I have, so I'm going to open it up. And I apologize, my computer kept, I don't know why it was doing it, but it kept flashing, and I kept losing my place on my slides. But I'll open this up for any questions if there's still time.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. There is time. So if anybody has any questions, you're free to unmute yourself or send them in the chat, whatever you prefer. Christopher Scott did say, Michelle, thank you for sharing this information. So I want to say thank you as well. It was very beneficial.
Well, it's important. And I'm glad I could do it.
Thank you. Are there any questions then? I'm sure questions will come up when you guys start writing your plans. There might be things that you need to address. And so I do have Michelle's information available, and I will send that to everybody along with the printouts that she provided me.
Yeah, and please don't hesitate to call. I mean, I'm happy to help with continuity plans. I do it quite often, so just reach out.
Perfect. I don't think there's any questions. I think everybody is good to go. So Michelle, thank you again for doing this for us. We really do appreciate. Yes, Tamara said thank you as well. We really do appreciate you doing this. I know that we think about this after, like you said, a disaster happens, but we are just glad that we're able to provide this as a tool for the future. So thank you so much.
No, you're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Well, we'll talk soon, Michelle. Thank you guys for coming.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.